Hello, I'm Mike Ryan. I'm the Chief Networking Officer at PIMS, and welcome to our second season of Minutes with Mike. Now in my 33rd year at PIMS, I've had the privilege of partnering with companies both large and small, supporting their PR and marketing through customized fulfillment and distribution that delivers measurable impact on their brand perception, boosts positive affinity, and fuels their overall brand performance. And throughout my career, I've had the chance to work alongside many talented folks. This is their story. On this show, we'll sit down with some of the world's top marketing and business thought leaders to learn more about their success, how they got there, how marketing helped them achieve their goals, what strategies they used, and what inspires them. Please join me on this journey as we learn from those who are changing the way we think about business. So sit back, enjoy. You're listening to Minutes with Mike. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Minutes with Mike. Today, we have Kelly Kovack. Kelly is the CEO and founder at the wonderful BeautyMatter. Welcome, Kelly.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
We're lucky enough to have Kelly with us today, who launched BeautyMatter in 2016. It's a membership-based organization that really is in the business of beauty. I checked this morning before we came on. It looks like you have 82,000 plus followers. So I'm not the only one who enjoys coffee every morning, getting my alert from BeautyMatter and all the things that are going on. So I really want to just dive right into this and explore a little bit about who you are and where you came from and what got you into this space. So tell us a little bit about your background and maybe a little bit about your journey. I know you also had some time with some of the brands like Dr. Dennis Gross and I believe Bliss, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have almost two parts to my beauty personality. Some people in the industry sort of know my full story. A lot of people think I'm a journalist, which I'm honored that people think that, but I'm not. I started my career on the brand side. So I spent probably the first couple decades on the brand side. One of my first jobs when coming to New York after college was at Bliss. It was one of those random decisions you make in life. I was in the fashion industry, working for sort of in a crazy situation. It was the summer. I couldn't get hired because of who I worked for, and a friend of mine was going to go run the Bliss Spa. And he said, why don't you come answer the phones for the summer? No one's going to hire you. And I said, okay. And then Marcia asked me what I was doing. And I was running production and sales for this company. And she said, well, I want to do a catalog. You can run the catalog. And none of us knew what we were all young. We were in our late 20s. We all lived downtown. It was a really interesting time. And at the end of the day, like that's really sort of what put me on my path, both as an entrepreneur and in the beauty industry. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs, quite the opposite. I think my family still wonders what I do, but I've had various incarnations of agencies, about 5 of them, everything from concept to counter to strategic agencies. One turned into a design agency. I launched a couple of my own brands that were early. So Rescue Beauty Lounge on the first iteration of nails being hot. And then about 15 years ago, Ode in New York. So sort of the beginning of the niche fragrance movement. And then, yes, along the way, I was at Dr. Dennis Gross. I was the first vice president of marketing. So sort of a very non-linear career path. I've never worked at any of the big beauty brands. They've been clients, but very much sort of an entrepreneurial, you do something, it works, or you get bored, you move on to the next thing. And along the way, I guess it was about 15 years ago, it dawned on me, because people kept asking me, where do you get your ideas? Because I was always building and launching new brands or fixing brands. And it was never from the beauty industry. Because back then, well, it makes me sound ancient, but 15 years ago, it was really women's wear on Friday and sort of the more traditional trades. And I just sat back and looked, and I looked at where I was getting inspiration, and it was from other industries with very robust B2B media ecosystems. But I know how to put goop in a jar and sell it. I knew nothing about media. So it sort of banged around in my head for about 5 years. Until I found a way to I launched it. I think this is just one of those entrepreneurial things. We focus on data so much now. And if I had to rely on data to put BeautyMatter into the world, it wouldn't exist because there was no data set to reference. It was just a gut feeling like that there was another way to do B2B beauty media. And now, if you look at the B2B landscape, it's amazing. There's Business of Fashion, Vogue Business, Beauty Independent, Glossy. Like there's a really robust B2B media environment. So it's really come a long way. But that wasn't a short answer to my career, but
I love it. I love it.
complicated.
Yeah. One of the things that I love the most about Beauty Matter, the space you just talked about a little bit right there at the end, the space that you're in, it lets you really just engorge yourself on all the topics. Your topics range the gamut, anywhere from body care to fragrance to grooming, hair care, and the like, but also the business end of things too, like the marketing and the legal. It really lets you sort of dive in and get the information you need from various different sources that can move your business along. You and I have had a long time in this industry. I've been doing this almost 35 years now, and it's changed quite a bit, at least on our end too. When we first started sending out the distribution, it was a lot of press release driven. Now it's all customized, and everything we do is specialized and customized. So getting information from the likes of Beauty Matter on what the trends are and what's going on day to day in our world is just the amount of information that we garnish from that is unbelievable.
Yeah, our goal really was to build a community and a space for the entire beauty industry. So much is focused on brands and retailers, but there's a really complex value chain that makes brands and retailers successful, and they don't get a lot of attention always. But for early stage brands, they also need resources, and it is not always sort of defined best in class. So the goal was to represent the entire industry and also provide a platform. When I had my own brands and I would pitch, I always like, we would get coverage, but I'm like, they don't get that special, like they're missing something. Why is that thing that I think makes our brand so special no one writes about? And I really wanted to create a place where we could tell and really story tell for brands, where they could dive into the DNA and what makes them tick. We don't put, a lot of writers they always ask me for a word count. I'm like, we don't write into word counts. How many words do you need to convey what you want to tell people? So we have really long format, and then we have really short format, and it's really about the function that the piece plays.
You wear so many hats, and thinking about today and the questions I wanted to ask you, I could spend an hour just talking about each different hat. You are an editor, you are a CEO, you are the finance person, you are a salesperson, you are an expert in the field, you are a mentor. You wear these so many hats tied in with that whole entrepreneurial spirit. I always am intrigued to hear a little bit about the story behind what makes it tick. So there are obvious things, the pitfalls that come along the way. From you have the idea, you mentioned you kind of mulled it over in your head for a long time before you actually put pen to paper. What are some of the roadblocks that you hit along the way, besides people saying no, which I'm sure you hear every day, and what brought you to the space you're at right now?
Yeah, it is. I think every entrepreneur, especially if you're self-funded, has to wear all the hats, right? I think I have the experience of having done it before. I think that I think I think founders who have had multiple startups, you learn from your mistakes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So you learn from your mistakes, you learn what you're good at. It took me, I think maybe I'm a slow learner. I had friends in the industry that were like, when are you just going to do your own thing, Kelly? Because I've always had partners. And it took me, I don't know, 25 years to finally listen to them. But I think Beauty Matter is kind of the culmination of like a career of learnings. And I think I knew what I was good at. I'm good at, I connect the dots differently, I guess. I'm good at finding white space. I'm good at building brands that look bigger than they are. What I've learned is that I'm not an operator. I can be an operator, but there are people way better than me. And and to make a business, building a brand is the first step. Building a business under the brand is infinitely harder and requires a different skill set. So BeautyMatter launched, and I did it on the side for 3.5 years. And I was very careful to let it evolve. And that is a luxury that not everyone has, but it grew organically. And then 3.5 years later, we built a business on top of it. John Caffarelli joined me. He comes from investment banking, private equity, but he was also the chief operating officer at Paper Magazine. So he had a media background as well. So I had the yin to my yang, if you will. And he really helped me build the business on top of this community and idea. And I think that what I've learned is that you can't do everything. So we've slowly put together a team that I could not wear the hat, still be involved, but have people sort of focus on skills that are not my core competency. And I think brands are not built by one individual. Like, founders have the idea, but success really comes in the team that you build around you. And it's taken a long time to get the right people in place, but we have an amazing team now. So but you also can't relinquish, right? You have to sort of not stay in the weeds, but you have to know what's going on in all the parts of your business while also letting people kind of do their jobs. It's a fine line, but yeah, I've learned you've gotta and I think there's a lot of pressure on founders today to move fast, and brands and businesses can scale quickly, but I don't know that long-term businesses scale fast. Like, you need time to figure out who you are.
Great point. That really hits home, certainly on our end, but I know across all spectrums too, that building that team around you is what's going to create your ultimate success. You can't do everything. And if you try to embed yourself in the parts of the business that are not your forte, those are always the part that don't succeed. So point well taken, well noted. I wanted to talk a little bit about evolving landscapes. Again, from my point of view, I see new product launches, I see rebranding launches, we see all sorts of stuff, but with the wellness and the health category almost now being part of the beauty and cosmetic world, that's something that didn't happen overnight, but I saw it developing as it goes, and now it's very much so part of the realm of when these companies come together, they are boasting the fact that wellness ties in with their brand. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about, on your end, what you're noticing or what you're writing about or what you see coming across your desk every day on those.
Yeah, kind of beauty from the inside out is not a new concept. It's something that has been in the professional side, specifically the spa industry, for a very long time. I mean, it's something that we talked about at Bliss. I mean, so that was 1996. So definitely not a new concept, but I think lifestyles have evolved. I think technology has evolved, and people just think more holistically, I think, than in the past. And I think while these kind of products existed before, I think what didn't exist was the shelf space in traditional beauty retailers. And so I think the unlock was, and it's one of those chicken or the egg, right? Which came first, but it's very hard. It's very hard for a trend to break through if there's not shelf space. And you find that with a lot of white space opportunities. Sometimes white space does exist for a reason, but white space is a double-edged sword, right? If no one's doing it, it means there's probably not a section in a retailer that's selling those goods. So you end up on a shelf that's a little incongruous. So it is, I think once beauty retailers provided the shelf space for these concepts to live. I think that's where you truly saw sort of the intersection, and also the rise of Goop and the rise of Credo, these retailers that sort of leaned into wellness sort of a bit heavier than traditional retailers.
You spoke about data too a little bit a while ago, and obviously data and the information behind the analytics of such is what drives sales, or what people perceive as the capture of the information that drives sales. That's again something that didn't happen overnight, but along with all these brand sendouts and fulfillment that we do, especially when you're talking about non-media based, where it's more influencer based, people are looking to these data companies to share information about success rates, the big reveals, the grand reveals. Maybe you can talk a little bit about too on how that data has really changed the landscape of the product offerings.
I think data is important, don't get me wrong, but I feel like in some cases we rely too much on data. There are actual people behind the numbers. And if you really want to know what's going on, sort of in trends or with your brand, go stand on a sales floor, talk to customers, talk to sort of the beauty advisors. They are so tapped in. And I think that data can be a crutch. It can be an amazing tool, but it can also be a crutch. So I think that data is so important to make smart decisions, to inform sort of what works, what doesn't work. I think now we have AI that adds a level of just the amount of really complicated information that would take a human being maybe never to aggregate can be sort of digested and spit out in seconds. So there's power in technology and data, but I think that it's really, really important to always wrap that data around context. And also sometimes numbers are numbers, but understanding why things are happening sometimes happens just having a conversation with someone, or an opportunity happens by standing on a sales floor and you're like, wow, okay, well, the data didn't tell me that. So I am a huge proponent. When I was vice president of marketing at DDG many, many years ago, anyone who worked in the marketing team had to go work at the counter at every one of our retailers. And a lot of people didn't want to do it. And I was like, well, our job is to make them successful. And if you don't know what they do, then you can't create marketing materials for them. So and now I think the same thing happens sort of in social media, right? Those direct conversations. But there's something different that happens when you have a human to human connection. Yes. That doesn't have sort of a screen in between the conversation. There's so much information there.
It's funny you say that, because we talk about that internally here too with the teams and a lot of our clients as well, that having lunch with a client or meeting at an event, you can engage a client in such a way that's worth 50 emails, or like anything else, maybe not at all, right? Like you never know a person until you've had the chance to shake their hand, meet with them, and have an open and honest conversation, right? And since we're in the world of formulating plans or creating success stories for our clients, getting to know them on that sort of relationship level, where what they're thinking before they think it, is something that we don't want the folks over here to miss. And you make a really good point that how can you do without doing, right? Like how can you be a success at what you want to do in marketing or PR or whatever it's going to be, unless you're able to engage on that one-on-one level. You also talked a little bit about AI, which I wanted to bring up too, with this new sort of trend, and it's not even a trend. It's coming faster than we expect, right? And it's changing.
Here.
It's changing every day. So we've been asked a lot of times on our end, like, Is this something that's going to affect your world? Is this something that's going to update your world? And I think it's really going to be across all boundaries, a real win for everybody. With us, tying in with AI is just going to help us maneuver faster and be able to pivot faster with these customized sendouts, knowing shade matching and size matching and color matching and all the personalized note, everything that we do to customize these sendouts is going to be that much quicker and that much faster. But I'd like to hear on your end what you think the Chat GPT and the AI of the worlds. What are some of the pluses and minuses of that next age that we're entering going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's fascinating. And it's something that I've been paying attention to. One of my guilty pleasures is to go to conferences that have nothing to do with beauty when no one knows me. And I can just listen to people who are like outside. I went to the summit like pre-COVID, and the conversations that they were having around AI and conversations like, will AI become sentient? And I was like, oh my God, like I don't like these people are way smarter than I am. But it's been on my mind for a long time. And then it feels like all of a sudden it has very quickly turned into products. And I think AI is already embedded in our life. I think we just don't realize it.
Right.
If you specifically on the media side, I have real concerns because I've played around with Chat GPT. I'm fascinated by the power of it. I've also seen it spit up incorrect information, hallucinations with a very good prompt. I've even found information online. I don't know, we were traveling somewhere and John was like, I didn't know Heyday was worth $1 billion. And I was like, it's not. And so they had
Who
taken
told you that?
this
Yeah.
writer had taken Heyday, the Amazon aggregator, right? That it was valued at $1 billion at one point. But the entire article was about Heyday, the service concept, which is not worth $1 billion. They're very successful, but they're definitely not worth $1 billion. But that now lives out in the world. And someone is going to take that information that doesn't know it is not correct, and then it gets perpetuated. And I think that is the scariest thing to me.
It's true too. I mean, it kind of marries into what you were talking about too, with that personal attention and that personal approach, right? It is trying to mimic that personal touch done by human beings, which who knows where that's going to be 10 years from now. Maybe somebody will be watching this in 10 years and be like, that guy Mike didn't even know what he was talking about. But right now, when you get a spam email, when you get whatever, even a voice recorded a message on your phone, you right away that there's something not right, right? It's not that personal touch and approach. That, of course, you can't ignore the fact, the speed of the accuracy issues aside, which who knows where that will go, but the speed in which these systems work, the chat, you can write an email to somebody, cut, paste it in there and say, write this better. I was helping.
Yeah, I mean, I think where there's a lot of value is in marketing automation. So I was having conversations with a team that was sort of an early adopter on incorporating Chat GPT, and they have really trained it to be able to write in their voice. So I think it's a lot of people are worried that robots and AI are gonna take jobs. Listen, the jobs change. So you can either learn, it's a new skill, right? It's like we always have to learn new skills. So you learn how to use AI as a tool. And if you don't, then yes, you're probably going to lose your job.
And I try not to laugh because I'm much older than you, but
I don't know about that, but
I remember people saying like, there's going to be this system where you can write something down and press a button and it'll send somebody. It's called email. And we're like,
yes.
no one's ever going to use that. It's the internet. It's good. You'll be able to look up things on site and research items. No one's ever going to use that. So you're right. It's a new skill. It's something that you're going to have to master. It's something that I'm sure they're going to teach students from grade school on up. So by the time they get to be our age, they're old hand at it.
But I also think it's important. I think I really think that a competitive edge is going to be teams that are cross-generational. where you can have a meeting on a topic, and you have a Gen Z person who, listen, they're already using these tools at the same table with a Gen X and everything in between. And you can really sort of have conversations, problem solve without eye rolls, right? And if you can create those kind of cultures where everyone can learn from each other, I think there's a lot of power in that.
Agreed. The pandemic meant that we were all displaced, right? Everybody was out. There was no more events, right? I met you through the BeautyMatter events that you have. They're all wonderful, including the summit and Future 50 that's coming up. Future 50 in June and the summit in October in LA, I believe. I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, because going to those things, we are a partner in those, we are attendees in those, but I'm also a student in those. I've been doing this, like I said, 35 years, and I'm always so excited to go because I always come out learning something that I didn't know beforehand, or pointing me towards something that I want to learn more about, or meeting people that I've saw on LinkedIn, heard about, saw in passing, but never had a chance to meet. It brings us all together at an event where we all have this sort of commonality of business. Tell me about those two events.
Yeah, so we always knew eventually we would get into events. We actually had an event planned literally when COVID hit. It was going to be completely different format. But so we always knew that we would get into events. When we decided to sort of pull the trigger, listen, there are a lot of events, and they are a commitment of people's time, and they are a commitment of budget. Events are incredibly expensive to execute. So we wanted to just not show up in the same way. And having been on the other side of the industry and have gone to hundreds of events, we really approached it from deconstructing events. What are all the things we like? What are all the things we don't like that we think we can do better? And I can't say that we're still struggling with the check-in. I think we'll get it better this time. But, we don't come from an event background, so I have a healthy respect. Someone above was looking after us because it got a little hairy at times. We've got we have 3 of them under our belt at this point. But we really wanted to create a space that connected the community, that was inspiring. We really sort of take a hospitality approach. So our team knows we're like, just pretend we invited 400 people into our home for the day. I spent an awful lot of time in the industry, and not having come from big beauty brands, I found myself at events very often in the corner, not knowing anyone, and on the phone pretending I had something to do. And it's uncomfortable. And so I didn't want that. I didn't want that. I wanted to create a space where that was fun, that people could feel like they could come by themselves and not have to wonder, like, how awkward is this going to be? And so we've sort of created the environment, but I will say our community has run with it. So when people come to our events, it is really sort of everyone's on a level playing field, and everything from the strategics to the startups to the emerging brands to sort of everyone in the value chain, everyone's there to learn from each other. And so I think we set the stage, but then sort of our community has sort of run with it. We pay a lot of attention to food, right? How many conferences do you go to where the food is like literally inedible? So it's little things like that.
Those little things turn into big things. They make it all the difference. As a chief
Yeah,
networking
and
officer at PIMS, I get to these a lot, so you're spot on.
yeah, and the goodie bag that if you're traveling is full of stuff that you're going to leave in the hotel because you can't travel with it or it's not right for you. So we were like, instead of a goodie bag, let's do a store. People can shop it themselves, and we'll do food and beverage. It solves the snack thing. And then the most important thing for us is the content. Sometimes at events, content is the window dressing, or content is where a lot of revenue is driven. And for us, maybe we're leaving a lot of money on the table, but it's fine. Content, you cannot buy your way onto a panel. And there are panels that we have where we don't get the right people, so we shelve them. So the content is really the heart of what we do. And we try and shake things up. And the fact that people stay all day and we have to kick them out at the end is a testament to, I think we're getting some things right, but it's fun to bring people together. And it's fun to sort of set the stage and then let people kind of take it over.
People can get more information on the next awards, the BeautyMatter Summit and the Future 50 on your website, BeautyMatter. This has been wonderful. We're going to close out with our Minutes with Mike lightning round, which we love to give to our guests.
All right.
These are this or that type questions. We're going to fire off whatever comes to your head first. There is no wrong answer. Are you ready?
All right.
City streets or country trails?
Oh, can I have both?
Good answer.
Well, city streets. I mean, I live in New York. So.
Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram. LinkedIn, actually.
There you go. I like that. Theme park or water park?
Theme park.
Lipstick or lip gloss?
Lipstick.
Saturdays or Sundays?
Sundays.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Bold nail polish or neutral?
Neutral.
Calling or texting?
Texting.
And the last one, wash the dishes immediately or wait till the sink is full?
Wash the dishes immediately.
Me too. Kelly Kovack, thank you so much for joining us on Minutes with Mike. I can't wait to see you at the next summit. Looking forward to more. And again, everybody, if you haven't yet, go check out BeautyMatter. It's fantastic.
Thanks, Mike.